How's it going? Thralls of Metal here. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
Had to think about it for a second.
Sleepy.
And we're here with another album review. This time we are doing another EP that came out actually this Friday. Ingested's Called the Void EP, out on Unique Leader Records. This is only their second EP, not counting their split EP, which was a first release for them way back in 2007. This band's only been around since 2006, and they're from Manchester, UK, and they're kind of making, they initially made a name for themselves as a pretty solid slam band, even though I'm not really a slam fan. They're good.
Yeah, real good.
And then have slowly started to transition more to just straightforward modern death metal with touches of brutal death metal.
Which is what this EP is.
Yes.
I'm actually grossly impressed with this. This was a great listen.
This shows a lot of musical growth, which their last album, that was on your year-end list,
Yeah, yep.
showed a lot of musical growth in there too, like more melody, more harmonies and guitars there, more lead work, just more of a lot of good things that metalheads love.
Yeah, well, and more of a lot of good things that you didn't expect to see from a band such as Ingested. Their musicianship on this album, though, I have to say, has improved fourfold. Their overall songwriting, the song structures in this are just great. They use a lot of melody.
A lot of it.
In the guitar work. It's still heavy as all get out.
Yeah, right away. I mean, Mouth of the Abyss
Yeah,
was the opening track and the lead-off one they put out on Unique Leader's YouTube.
Yep.
And that kind of demonstrated a whole myriad of things there. Like, there were still some token slammy parts, but that wasn't predominantly the song at all. It was
right,
mostly...
even those moments don't appear until later on in the song. It starts out with this really melodic, chuggy riff.
Very Dying Fetus, like straightforward meat and potatoes, chunky riff.
Yeah. Definitely sounds, again, more like death metal, classic death metal, even brutal death at this point than it does slam. Which is really cool to see when bands do that. I like when bands branch out.
Yeah, they've moved away from the sound that's more established by a band like Devourment towards sort of the bands that influence brutal death, like Dying Fetus, Suffocation, Baphomet, and it's really working for me personally because I like this growth. It's a lot of musical growth on here.
Yep.
The vocalist doing a great job on here.
He really branched out. Again, away from way less pig squeals, way more just, I would call it experimentation as far as death metal goes, because he encompassed, there was again a wide swath of vocal range here, and you'll hear it when you jam the record. It's
his high to mid range growl is way more clear.
Yep.
Some of the lows had some vocal effects on it I didn't care for. It just kind of sounded a little bit campier. And he can still get down and do the pig squeals. They're just not as much because he has a good low register, straightforward growl, which is really good. There's also a good use of acoustic guitars and melody.
So, I guess that would bring out the two tracks I really took away from this album besides the opener, which would be Eternal Kingdoms Part 1 and 2. Holy shit.
Songwriting dynamics. Yeah. Like good acoustic breaks. Like it opens up with a really good acoustic lead-in, much like we've been hearing for years ever since, Fight Fire with Fire was released. That became a popular thing to do. And then into just nasty blast beats and really cool tremolo riffing. It's not their usual chunky style. Like this is more atmospheric death metal, or even blackened death metal.
Blackened atmospheric death metal. There we go. If that's not a thing yet, it should be.
But with a very modern production. Once again, this is a Unique Leader release, and they love things very polished, very crisp, but still with some discernible grit.
And then the second half, the part 2, is all instrumental. And then again, really atmospheric and mostly acoustic.
Yeah,
I think they used electric, but they might have used an effect, but it was in there. And I kept thinking that because the lead in for the second part is the lead out of the first track. And it meshes together really well. We had to actually stop and look.
Yeah, it creates a really good mood to that second part, like the transition from that first part, which is very heavy and very epic in parts too, to this somber, melancholy sounding little instrumental, which really comes off as pretty.
And again, that's something else to point out too. I think is when they incorporated all this melodic stuff that they incorporated into this album, they transitioned very well in those parts. Like it wasn't just like a band trying where they're like, oh, we're gonna throw in this melodic part and we're gonna throw this here. Like it all meshed really well.
They knew where to put it.
Yeah,
and it worked. They gave the songs impact. Now I thought it kind of waned a little bit in terms of the overall feel of it around Empyrean Creed, which is one of the longer songs in here. It just kind of stays a mid-tempo brooding chugger with some cool blasts, but I don't know, it didn't match the impact of those initial tracks.
Right.
I didn't think it was bad.
No, I didn't think it was bad either. I don't find as great of distaste for it, I think, as what you found. But it's definitely a different feel from the first 3 songs. And I get what they were trying to do, and I'm not saying they didn't do it well. I just think that there were parts during that song that didn't fit to the point where they were just a little lackluster.
Yeah, that's pretty much the feel. It's just a tad lackluster, especially compared to what you heard in those previous tracks again. And then there was an odd 22 seconds of silence and an interlude, which that may have some meaning for the band. I don't know what it is, but I just thought it was a little odd.
Right. I find that odd to throw in on an EP where you know, where the point is not to release too many songs, but to put out a good precursor to whatever the full length would be. And I think if you're going to do that as a band, I don't think that 22 seconds of silence is necessarily appropriate for that. Yeah. Again, like he said, it may have some meaning to them, and that's really cool, but don't put it on the EP.
Yeah. I mean, if it was a tribute to something, it could have been something in the linear notes that was explained that I didn't read up on.
Right, exactly.
But it just felt just odd. And then the final track, if you get the Digipack version, is a re-recording of their one of their earliest songs off that original split EP called Northwest Slam Fest, if you're looking for it. Yep. Erotic Depravity, which pretty much is them just re-recording a song that they probably didn't care for the recording early on, and like, hey, we got a chance to do it.
Right. And I get it. Original recordings are sometimes kind of, so I mean, if you got the chance to do it, why not go for it? But it definitely revisited who Ingested was prior to their last 2 albums.
Yeah, it's very much like if the Slam fans are still looking for that element of slam in them, it may have dissipated over the years, but this re-recording definitely reminds you of their roots.
Sure.
And it's 100% a slam song. I mean, it's got the lyrics, it's got the pig squeals, it's got the slam riffs. So, I mean, if you're looking for that, it's a good re-recording.
Right, it's still, yeah.
All in all, I just thought it felt a little tacked off.
Maybe they needed something as that. Maybe Unique Leaders said, okay, release a 16-minute EP, and they were like, fuck, we only have 13 minutes. Well, guess we'll just re-record this guy. Good re-recording.
Yeah.
No.
Solid production, again, so it sounded pretty damn crisp, and it didn't have one of the things I don't like about most slam bands, the slam snare. It actually kept with that nice snare popping sound they have in the rest of the album.
Yeah.
There's a solid snap to it.
Yep. Well done.
Yeah, all in all, I give it 3.5 stars. I think it's a solid release for them, and this definitely makes me curious about where they're going to go with their next album. So, as a teaser EP, this definitely did its job again, too.
Yep. I went ahead and gave it 4 stars. I think it's a great listen. I'm a fan of song structure and definitely incorporating melody and just becoming more elemental. I kind of give it more 4 stars because I like the progression of this, and I can see where this is the EP where it's gonna go overall, hopefully for the new album. So I mean, like, I'm pretty stoked on it. I
mean, there was definitely a lot of growth in their last album, and possibly some alienation with their older fans. But I think this band is definitely onto something, and I'm eager to hear what it is.
I think they're growing up.
Yeah.
So, it's a good thing.
So,
all right.
Another review in the books. If you like this video, give it a like. And if you're new to the channel, sub. We do shit like this all the time. Catch you later.
Later.